There's no recruiter on earth checking their email at 1:50 in the morning.
Every AI company is watching this case. There will be a precedent.
The bias is already inside of the machine, and it's invisible.
If you've applied for a job in the last 5 years and heard nothing back, there's a big chance that no human has read your resume. And if you're over 40, a federal court just said this is probably not a coincidence.
Oh no, I'm over 40.
Me too, but we're still productive people for society. And federal court is on our side because it certified a collective action, which could be hundreds of millions of people suing about this.
So we're going to talk about someone named Derek Mobley, a very accomplished businessman, graduated cum laude from Morehouse, got a finance degree, worked at some really big enterprises, Hewlett-Packard, the IRS, AT&T. Two things that you might want to know about Derek that are going to matter when we get into this a little bit later. He's Black and he's over 40. And for those who don't know, these are two protected characteristics that have U.S. federal law, anti-discrimination laws against discriminating against folks who fit into these categories. Between 2017 and 2024, Derek Mobley applied to over 100 jobs through Workday. If you're not familiar with Workday, it's a software. It's basically an HR platform, and 65% of Fortune 500s use it for their HR and hiring purposes. Walmart, Target, Bank of America, AT&T, as I mentioned. It's like this invisible layer in between you and almost every big employer in America. When he applied to these over 100 jobs, he got rejected every single time.
The straw that broke the camel's back is Derek submitting an application at, check out the time, 12:55 a.m. And he got a rejection literally, I think, 55 minutes at 1:50 a.m., middle of the night.
There's no recruiter on earth checking their email at 1:50 in the morning. This is very obviously a robot. The timestamp is sort of like the fingerprint of an algorithm. It really shows how the bias in AI can come to life and really have significant impacts for real people in the real world. So we actually talked to some recruiters who use these tools, and we learned a lot. There's a deeper level that happens inside of the AI model. It's scoring and ranking, and it's maybe even making assumptions about that applicant before they even hit that knockout question. And they don't really see it, right?
We know that in the past, it would be just submit your resume or you apply, a human will read it, then a decision, right? The way this process works, it's 3 steps. All happens before a human is saying your name. So first one, right? What we'd call the gate, right? And it's the kind of questions that I would say sort of makes sense if you get rejected. For example, let's say it's a hybrid role. So a question that says, can you work hybrid? If you say no, that will reject you. And again, it's a requirement. It makes sense. Is the salary in range? Let's say they're offering $60,000 a year, $70,000 a year, and you're looking to make $120,000. So if you say no, that's going to reject you. But then those are kind of like, the basic ones that make sense. But in this case, when you go over those things, Derek had a finance degree, like you said. He had Fortune 500 experience, and he got rejected more than 100 times across multiple industries. A salary question is not going to cut it, right? That's part number one. Then we have the score, which is what decides whether you go in front of a human or not. And this is AI scoring your own skills, education, work history, relevant to the position, right? And focusing on keywords. And it will show a percentage on a recruiter screen. This is public information. Workday talks about this on documentation. So they will see this person is a 97% match. This one is a 47% match. So now we had step number 1, where it's a yes or no. Step number 2, where it's the algorithm score. And then comes step number 3, which is the list, where the human finally opens the platform. The AI has already sorted the applications. And here's when I need to be transparent about what I heard, right? Because there's a difference. Some positions and maybe medium-sized, smaller businesses or highly regulated ones, they'll have like maybe 200 applicants. So after that initial step, then a recruiter will actually look in person, because what they stated mostly was, we want to find these candidates. We get paid for it. We want to find the talent, right? So this is what I heard from them. Other companies, especially the bigger ones that get thousands of applications, will add other filters, such as maybe the ones that apply within the first 24 hours, etc.
Wow.
There's a number of factors, whether algorithm or in pre-made filters, that might change who gets to see the resume.
Right. But when you look at all these factors together, it really does show you a world where like the machine already decided. What if the questions weren't questions that got at the truth of the situation? Like, I would like to move to Chicago, Illinois for this job. Maybe there wasn't a question that filtered for that. Maybe there wasn't a question that got at something that was unique and special about the candidate that was never going to be raised to the human at the end of, the process. And so, it really does show that the machines are making these decisions. When you look at like the case, right, what Workday said in their defense is that they're not the employer, they're a software vendor, and that they just make the tool. So the person at the other end, the hiring manager, should be the one who is sued, not Workday. The judge threw that out. Caveat, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm going to talk about some law stuff here. There's a precedent called Section 230. And if you've ever read about that, it's basically a law that says that, companies, social media companies like Meta are not the publisher of the information that's on their platform. They're just the delivery mechanism of that information. So when there is content on the platform that is offensive, it's not really their problem. I think maybe a few years ago would have been a strong defense, but Section 230 is being kind of picked apart and undone right now. Like really right now. So if you've been following any of the news around Meta, in March, they suffered 2 really big legal losses for endangering children and misleading users on their platform, right? So it was their algorithm, their pipes that were creating the space for children to be endangered. They also lost another $6 million case in California for social media addiction. It makes sense why the court ruled in this case that Workday is an agent of the employer, right? It basically means that it is not just a platform. It is not just software, as they said. It is actually doing tasks and doing work that people at Workday used to do, and thereby is an agent of the company, and thereby is the company's fault. Many folks may think that many people are at fault, but the platform is definitely one of them.
So in short, if the AI vendor is making the call, from what I'm getting kind of like from your explanation, is that if they can make the call on who gets through, then they are fulfilling a function that it's an agent, like a proper human agent, right? Not an AI agent function. And therefore, they can be sued. One thing that it's important to say, right, in the quest for being fair and balanced, is that does it mean that companies have to mean to discriminate? They have to be like, we don't want this demographic. And the answer is no. But there's this thing called disparate impact, right?
Okay.
It seems like the playing field, it's sort of even, but when you measure who gets through, a protected group gets disproportionately filtered out. The one example that comes to mind, right, that everybody knows is Amazon. When they were hiring engineers, they saw their algorithm, because it was trained on previous hiring decisions,
Right.
that surprise, favored a certain demographic that had to do something with males, etc. Then it was picking the same people. And you say, well, what if you have a neutral name? There's still information on your application, could be zip code,
Yes.
the kind of job that you've done, that lets the algorithm infer with a high degree of confidence what's your gender, age,
Right.
socioeconomic position. It's wild. So
It's
I know you
wild.
have a few other cases that you remember about this.
Well, I think one is, look, when this was analog, it may be that discrimination was happening by mistake in a different way. So like there was this one called Griggs versus Duke in 1971 that there was a height requirement in certain roles that basically just cut out a whole portion of the population that were women from being employed in those roles. And so the thing about the AI of it all is that the bias is already inherently inside of the machine, the way that you just explained from Amazon. And it's also invisible. Like, we don't really know why it is rejecting people. Is it because it combed through and saw the date that you graduated college and inferred your age? Is it that it has your zip code and like matched that with demographic data to understand something about your race or your financial history, right? There's just so much data that we cannot possibly understand how the decisions are being made. Begs the question for me, because this sort of applying for jobs and seeing rejection after rejection pattern is just really common right now because everybody's applying online and nobody knows who's on the other end. And I know I've experienced it. I know you've experienced it. I wonder if our listeners have experienced it. So let us know in the comments if it's happened to you, because I think it's just like a sign of the times right now.
There's more to the story. Because
Okay.
in March 2026, we're talking just weeks ago, Workday was like, we're not done fighting this yet.
No.
And they are that the Age Discrimination Act doesn't even cover job applicants, just current employees. So Mobley, Derek Mobley, should not be able to sue at all. And the judge was like, F that.
Wow.
Threw that out, and what he did was he pointed to longstanding Equal Employment Opportunity Commission guidance, right? What you folks are seeing on the screen, and we're linking, and that was what the judge used to say, like, no, you folks are going to have to pay. So what's the implication of this?
Somewhere in the ballpark of 88% of companies, by far the majority, are now using AI somewhere in their hiring process. It could be screening resumes, scheduling interviews. It could even be having your first interview with an AI chatbot, which has happened to some of us.
It happened to me, and I walked out. I was like, F you. They did not tell me.
Can you imagine? You get on and it's like, hello, Juan.
Well,
welcome.
I saw it. And I was like, goodbye.
I mean, just like every other sector, HR is running at AI, trying to figure out how it can, implement these tools in various ways to help them be more streamlined. Perhaps running is the right word because they're not stopping and thinking about the potential side effects and negative impacts of all of that. But certain lawmakers are. California and Illinois have already passed laws requiring companies to tell you when AI is involved in your hiring. The rest of the country is catching up. But I think that's a really important thing for folks to know. Really labeling the technology and also sharing openly what you're using, right? Are these proprietary models? Are they using off-the-shelf models? I think Workday had a combination of proprietary ML, and I think they also had a partnership with Salesforce where they were using some of their models. And so let us know, be transparent so that we can also see inside of your process. Hiring is a two-way street.
It's good that we're having this case, no matter the final outcome, if it goes to the Supreme Court, whatever, because this is ongoing, right? Even if it goes well for Mobley, it's not going to solve things overnight, but it does something important, at least here in the US, which is it ends this era of we just make the tool, right? Kate brought this up on the ghost accountability term she coined a few months ago. It's like what tech companies love to say. It's just, we just make the tool, but it's not our fault. So every AI company is watching this case, and they know that this is going to change the incentive. There will be a precedent. Right now, zero accountability. After Mobley, even if Workday wins, there's a paper trail, there's a discovery process, and a roadmap that more than likely upcoming cases will follow. Now, to all my 40 years old out there watching, if you have been like us, if you have been applying for jobs, drop the number you sent, how many applications last year, and how many callbacks. I want to see the types of comments we get, so we'll be reading and answering. And speaking of employees and the way AI is improving the experience of workers everywhere, we have an episode covering how Meta started training their AI algorithm on the everyday work of the people they hire just on time for the 8,000 layoffs that they're planning in May 20. So if you want to watch that, we got it here. We love you. See you in a week.